we'll start 4 lines from the bottom on Mem Zayin. We started this already, but we go back to the beginning of this inyan.
Few lines.
4 lines from the bottom. The line begins Hadover. V'yuch lifse kach v'kach.
We start 5 lines above the.
4 lines.
the
Yeah.
Okay.
What?
I had a sign 5 lines above when we start.
Oh, really?
Yes. I had.
I thought we learned that already.
So he wasn't in the last class.
Oh, you weren't in the last class. Oh, I see.
How come I have a sign?
You were in the last class before.
Can?
Because I have.
Fine. Sorry.
No, okay, it's all right. Okay, it's another example. All right, so the principle that the Rebbe is explaining right now is the total union between Gilui and Helen. There is the Gilui of the Svara, and there is the limit of the Svara, which is part of the Svara itself. It's not part of the Svara, it's the positive part of the Svara. But the Svara, as it comes from the Koyah HaMaskil, has both of these aspects. If it's a correct Svara, it has to have both of these aspects in it. The Gilui and the Helen. In other words, that where it reaches and that where it has to stop. Has to be limited. So we spoke about the each svara having a limit, and the part that you missed when you join several svaras together, each svara has to have its limit, and that way you can judge the applicability of one svara versus the other and come to a conclusion, a local conclusion, and so forth. And if you do not recognize the end limit of any svara, then you can never come to a conclusion. If you have basar b'cholov, meat and milk is not allowed to be mixed. If you have a drop of milk in a pot full of meat, is it a mix of milk and meat? Is it a mix of milk and meat? It's a mix of meat. That means, and yet it's mutter. Which means that the concept of mix milk and meat has a limit. Not just there is milk in it. It has a limit. The limit is if the milk can be recognized. And if it cannot be recognized, it's not a mix of milk and meat. A worse thing, you have 3 pieces of meat. Not mixed, 3 pieces of meat. 2 are kosher and 1 is not. You don't know which one is what. You allowed to eat it? You're allowed to eat it? It's bakel barov.
All the 3 pieces?
All the 3 pieces. What's a beetle berov? But there's not kosher meat in here. Not kosher is only when it is recognized as such, when it has its position. But if it doesn't have its position, then it loses its position. What's in the pshat? Everything has its hakbola. Last time I gave you another example. Remember? Shabbos. Carrying of Shabbos. Wearing clothes. Wearing clothes is carrying, but it's not the malacha of carrying. That's permitted. Not only is it permitted, you're allowed to put on any number of garments you want. Even if you want to transport a garment. In other words, if there's a fire, and you want to put on an extra jacket to save the jacket from being burnt up, you're allowed to. Even though you don't need it, but you're wearing it derech hamalbush, like a garment. It's not called carrying. Not a malach. This is the pshat. The swara has a hagbola, has a swara where it reaches and where it stops. And the hagbola and the swara come together from the same source at the same time. And without this hagbola, it would not be a correct swara. The hagbola is not superimposed on it. You understand that? Superimposed. It's not an outside way that you have to control it. Like I explained to you about carrying and Shabbos. The fact that you're allowed to wear a jacket on Shabbos is not an afterthought. After all, how can you walk without clothes? So we have to find a way to permit it. No, it's not what it means. The very deen, the very concept of carrying has its limit to begin with. It's not an afterthought. It's not a hagbola that comes on it later. It's part of its own definition. Yeah?
We don't have a bola with strong swirls.
That's exactly. The swara latchila is wrong. I mean, this swara comes to begin with the hagbola. So the hagbola enables the swara to be. Without the hagbola, you couldn't have a swara. V'chein, okay, continue later. V'chein b'mashpia u'mekaber. Likewise, when there is this interaction between the mashpia and the mekaber. What is a mashpia u'mekaber? A mashpia u'mekaber is not a simple situation where one person knows something and the other person does not know it, and this person tells him about it. Like, you know the directions how to go from here to Crown Heights, and he does not. So you tell him how to go. That's not mashpia or makab. This is not a hashpah that you take from your own seichel to be mashpia. You're telling him certain facts. And you're giving the facts exactly the way you have it. The reason that you know how to go from Yiddukah Heights and he doesn't is not because you were so smart, smarter than he. It's just that you know, you happen to know this. You have that experience. I'm doing an insight with you being a mashpia and he being a kabbalah. He can be a mashpia, he can know infinitely deeper in Yonim than you could. But this particular thing, you know how to go there. It's not mashpia makabel. Mashpia makabel is a real type of a relationship, where this one is a mashpia in the true sense, and this is a makabel in true sense. Now this, which mashpia is mashpia, the makabel could not find out on his own. If he were not to be explained and taught, he will never find it out on his own. Not until he grows to a much different level. What's meant mashpia makabel? Mashpia has a different insight, a different seichel, different capacity than the makabel. This is why this one is a mashpia and this is a makabel. Since they are different people and different madrigas, this is a mashpia, this is a makabel. Therefore, the mashpia is not telling the makabel what he knows, because the makabel is not a mashpia. He is mashpia to him that which he can accept, not that which he knows, that which he can accept. Then it's a relationship with mashpia and makabel. So in this case, mashpia and makabel, the hechrich, it's imperative. Shehamashpia yitzamtzem, that the mashpia should limit, should contract, should restrain, v'yalim, and conceal, v'yagdil sichloi, and limit his seichel, b'gdei sheyiskabil el hamakabel, in order that it should be acceptable by the makabel. Sheyim yigal elei etzem sichloi, for if he should reveal to him his very seichel, the way it is, k'mei shehu etzloi, the way it is by him, the way he sees it, lo yuchal lekabel, then the makabel will not be able to receive it. Because this is what makes him mashpia makabel. There are two different levels. The makabel will not be able to accept the seichel. And therefore, therefore he must conceal the essence, the essential aspect of his seichel. And to reveal to the makabel only that which can relate to him, which is relative to him.
Refer to the makabel or
The makabel, obviously. Masha be'erkoi, what's be'erech to the makabel. This is the only thing that he has to be megala. He cannot be megala. He cannot tell him the seichel the way he knows it, the way it is, the way it makes sense to him. He has to be mashpia to him in such a way that it should make sense to the makabel, from his perspective, from his level. So therefore, when the mashpia contemplates to give some seichel over to the makabel, he wants to teach him a certain inyan. Along with that concept, what he wants to teach him, comes also the Hakbola of what part of it he wants to teach. And how he wants to teach. Otherwise, he's thinking his own seichel. He's not thinking like a mashpia. He's thinking for himself. If he should be thinking like a mashpia, which means he must be give it over in this very concept, in this very desire to teach, there is already the union of limiting, of presenting, and identifying that part of the seichel which can benefit the mekabel. Because the whole idea of the mashpi is to be mashpi in such a way, in such a seichel, that the makabel will really be able to absorb and really relate to and understand. And thereby he actually develops and opens up the seichel of the makabel, making him able to understand and see things that he couldn't see before. Kind of, this is a process of growth of the seichel. But if he gives it to him the way he knows it, the makabel may be able to repeat it and say what he heard, but he can relate to it. So therefore he didn't do anything with it. He did not reach his seichel. Since he's a mashpia and he relates to a makabel, that already means that when he's formulating the seichel, when he decides which seichel he's going to teach him, in that is already inherent the limit of the seichel. And if it does not have that limit, then he is not contemplating to be mashpia. B'chein, and similarly, likewise, in addition to that, he has to what's called the halim etzem sichle. He has to put aside completely his seichel, it's his own seichel, and to reveal only that which is be'erach to the makabel. See, over here, the Rebbe says, I want to point out two things. That besides the fact that he only is revealing to the makabel that which is be'erach to the makabel, he also has to be malim, conceal his own seichel. This malim, he has to conceal his own seichel, means not just that he's concealing it from the makabel. He's automatically concealing from the makabel if he's not telling him, so the makabel doesn't have it. This concealing of the etzem seichel means he's concealing it from himself. Which means that he himself has to put himself into the shoes of the makabel and draw from his etzem seichel, and to understand his own seichel from the perspective, from the level of the makabel. Because if he continues to see the seichel the way he sees it, and he is only revealing to the makabel the chitzonius, without a real feel for the seichel, without being involved in understanding the seichel, it's not going to be a mashpia either. That's also not a mashpia. Because then he himself is not involved in that seichel that he is teaching. doesn't really mean anything to him. And therefore he's giving to the Makabel a dry seichel. Just giving him words. They don't mean anything to him. He's involved in something else. He's telling him the chitzonis, but in the chitzonistic way. There are two ways. The chitzonis of the seichel, but in a way that it makes sense, it's exciting to you. Then instead of saying, okay, here is what you do. But it doesn't mean anything to him. He has to be mal in his seichel and delve into the seichel from the Makabel's perspective, from the level of Makabel. Understand it as if he didn't know the seichel. Like a Makabel. And then he can mashpia to the seichel. Because then he is actually mashpia. Like a kindergarten teacher. That's a clear moment where he can illustrate this. A kindergarten teacher is playing with the children. The teacher is a teacher, is an adult teacher, and is playing, baby stuff. If the teacher is not involved with the children, does not stoop down to the level to imagine how the children are going to react to this play. He's just telling the kids, do this. He's not going to get the kids. They're not going to enjoy it with him. He'll be bored stiff, and the children will not get anything from him. The kindergarten teacher is really a teacher and knows what he is doing or what she is doing, and understands what she's trying to impart, what to teach and to develop in the children. And then she takes it from the child's mind and sees how the child is going to react to this and how the child is going to understand it, and gets involved with the children as if she were a child. Except she's not a child, so she is in control, and she knows what this is about. That way, she can develop child and be mashpia. A teacher says, Lehakabdom melamed, right? Lehalabashon lomed, lehakabdom melamed. You know what that is, right? Lehakabdom mishnah, lehakabdom melamed. Akabdom, somebody who is intolerant, cannot be melamed. He is teaching something, and the student doesn't pay attention, which is a terrible thing. The student is supposed to pay attention. Doesn't pay attention. So he gets angry. He can't be a teacher. Why? Because he doesn't understand how the student cannot pay attention. And he's trying to teach, I'm teaching you such and such a thing, and you don't pay attention. What kind of person are you? What kind of stupid idiot are you? If I'm a stupid idiot, what are you teaching me for? Right? The whole idea is that he goes down to the level of the student, and he understands that the student may not pay attention. And he understands this whole thing, and he makes it that the student will become interested. Get the student involved a little bit, so that he becomes interested. What's next? So what's the answer? And then he gets it to him. And even if the student loses attention, so he reminds him, brings him back. Why? Because he feels with the student. He thinks at this moment like the student. And he sees why the student is not paying attention. He got distracted by a silly thing. So he brings him back. But if he would remain over there, and you can't imagine how you cannot pay attention when you're learning such in Yon, then you can be a teacher. So all this is part of being a mashpia. And this is all part of the preparing the lesson. I was to be mashpia the seichel means to be mashpia the seichel and also limited and understand the seichel from the student's perspective. And at this very moment, he has to cease to be a mashpia, so to speak, and become a makabel. But a makabel who knows the inyan. And if the makabel will ask him a question that is a little bit higher, he will know the answer because he'll go back to his seichel. And then that's how it develops. Okay, further. Also, he has to be magbil, he has to limit his seichel. Shelo yispashet yesen midai, that he should not spread yispashet. You have the next page, Memches. Yeah, he should not spread out beyond limit, yesen midai, more than appropriate. Bigdei sheyuchal hamakabel lekabel, so that the makabel should be able to receive. This is where we started this last week. So that the makabel will be able to receive it. What does that mean? Kiyim yispashet yesen midai, because if the seichel should spread more than the appropriate limit, lo yiyeh lefi erech klei hamakabel, then it will not be in measure of the kelim of the makabel. This is two different inyanim. There is the seichel of the makabel and the klei hamakabel. Seichel hamakabel is what the makabel can understand, can possibly relate to in his seichel. And klei hamakabel is how strong are his kelim, how many different svaras he can take at one time. Let's say you have 10 kashas and 10 terutzim. The makabel cannot sit through all 10 kashas and terutzim in one sitting. He'll lose it. He can take one or two at a time. And the same thing is within the kasha and teretz itself. You have a kasha and a teretz, and a kasha on the teretz, and a teretz on the kasha. And you can go X number of levels of depth of this whole discussion. It's all very logical. within the relative capacity of the makabel to understand. But he can't follow you like this. That's not the kelim. He'll get lost. So the mashpia has to judge and limit the hispashtus of the seichel. So he has to limit the essence of the seichel, the concept, and also the hispashtus. And all that is part of being a mashpia. It's not two different things, two separate things. The mashpia is not going to be mashpia and talking until he sees the makabel is totally lost. That's not a mashpia. Nimtzo. Therefore it comes out. excuse me, sheyesh koyach hagbolo lahagbil as aseichel. That there is a koyach, there is a certain capacity lahagbil as aseichel, to limit the seichel. So that the seichel does not go just revealing itself, but it's also being restrained. Vehine, behold, koyach ha'hagbola hanal, this koyach, this aspect that affects a limit on the seichel, hu gam kein mikoyach ha'maskil atzmei. The Hagbola also is from the Koyach HaMaskil. This is a very, very interesting thing. The Koyach HaMaskil we discussed a little bit before. And now we see that the Koyach HaMaskil feeds not only the Seichel, but the Koyach HaGbol of the Seichel. What does this mean? We can understand the inyan that the Koyach HaMaskil is what provides for the Seichel, as we discussed last time. But what is the Koyach HaMaskil? Essentially, it is that when a person understands, the Seichel is the logic, right? You present something in a logical fashion. But then this logic not only fits neatly in an orderly fashion, but the idea makes sense to the person. Like we said, 2 times 2 equals 4. I'm talking about the simplest level. 2 times 2 equals to 4. 2 times 2 equals to 4 is a simple fact. Yet a person understands it. He doesn't just know it, he understands it, this concept. This understanding, the fact that there's a concept of understanding, not just knowing, this is because he has a Koyach HaMaskil. Because a person relates to everything seichelic, the way it makes sense, the way it is right, the way it is true. So when you tell a person 2 times 2 equals to 4, he knows the correctness of that statement not only because he's forced to accept it because he can prove it. You understand? It's not that forced, but this is something which really makes sense to him. This is the way it should be. That's meant Koyach HaMaskil. It comes from the Koyach HaMaskil. Because a person is a sichli. A sichli means that he thinks of everything in a manner that makes sense, that is correct, that is true. So when you tell him something that's seicheldik, he does not feel like you are imposing something on him, you're forcing him to accept something. But he actually personally relates to it. You with me? That's what Koyach HaMaskil.
And what is the Koyach HaGbol?
Okay. So this is the Koyach HaMaskil. So the Koyach HaMaskil gives the ability to understand, to really understand the English. Now we're told that the Koyach HaMaskil not only gives us the ability to understand the English, in other words, to make sense of the fact that we understand it, but another aspect. The Koyach HaMaskil provides us with the ability to put this inyan into seichel. to put it into a logical perspective, logical form. This is also part of the Koyach Maskil. The Koyach Maskil gives us the ability to understand the concept and also to define and to express this concept in a seichelic and organized way. This is part of the Koyach Maskil.
He like give the idea which also how to explain. Like,
That's right. This is why when a person understands something, makes sense, he is very, very excited internally, very impressed. Not only because he's now understood a new idea, but because of the logic, because everything fits together so well, everything's so neat, so correct, that also makes him, fits in with him. Because that itself also came from the Koyach Maskil. So that the Koyach Maskil provides for the Gili of the Seichel and for the Hagbola of the Seichel. Because this is what makes it possible to express the Inyan, the idea, in an organized fashion. Let's say somebody conceptualizes an architect. None of us are architects, but you can understand the concept. He conceptualizes a certain design of a building. And then he goes and he thinks into that building that he conceptualized and draws plans up. And he sees how that building is actually expressed in these plans. And in such an organized way that actually you can go and take these plans and build a building. That itself gives him a tremendous satisfaction. Even though primarily his goal thing is the concept. But the fact that this concept is being put in a functioning manner is part of the concept. Because the idea of having a concept of a building is not just I imagine of a building, but it is that this is what can be done. And here he sees how it can be done.
like feeling this is through seichel.
That's right. So this and the plan of how to do it and so forth is part of the Koyach Maskil, what the Koyach Maskil provides for the seichel. Okay. Okay, so let's look inside. I'm going again to the end of the second line on top. Hine, Koyach HaHagbola HaNal, the Koyach HaHagbola that we now described, who gamkein mikoyach HaMaskil Atzmi, also flows from the Koyach HaMaskil itself. Shem Mishom, because from there, from the Koyach HaMaskil, Nimshach Gilui HaSeichel, comes forth the expression and the Gilui of the Seichel, Lahaskil B'chol Dvar Muskol, to be able to understand anything that can be understood. Mishom Nimshach Gamkin, from there too is drawn Koyach HaGvul Lahagbal Zaseichel. The Koyach of the Gvul, of the limit, to be Magbil the Seichel in order to produce the Seichel as a Seichel, rather than as a neutral concept that is higher than Seichel. V'heim b'chinas chesed gvura she'b'koyach hamaskil. These are the two aspects in the koyach hamaskil itself, the chesed and gvura. Chesed is the concept of complete openness and expression. Gvura is a concept of requiring a definition, requiring a limit. What are you trying to say? So the Koyach HaChesed and Gvura in the Koyach HaMaskil itself. The Mebchinas HaChasodim Shaboy, where from the Chesed aspect that's in the Koyach HaMaskil, Bo Koyach HaGiluy Legaluis, from there comes the Koyach HaGiluy, to reveal and to express express what is in Koyach HaMaskil. Mebchinas HaGvura, from the Gvura aspect, Hu Koyach HaGvul LeHagbil, comes the Koyach HaGvul to limit, because the idea that the Koyach HaMaskil wants to reveal, the Koyach HaMaskil wants to reveal at the level in the form of Seichel, not just to reveal itself, but to reveal a Seichel L'Gizach. A Seichel L'Gizach has to have both a Gilui and a Helam. Has to have a Hagbul. And therefore it comes from both come from Koyach HaMaskil. Let's discuss a little bit what we have now learned about the Koyach HaMaskil, which is very important, very revealing in terms of understanding what Seichel is, what a human being is. We're saying like this, we're saying that in Koyach HaMaskil there are two midas. There's a Chesed and the Gvura. Now, the Chesed and Gvura, as they are in midas, lower than Seichel. There's Chesed and Gvura. Right? In the person there's Chesed and Gvura, 7 midas. These 7 midas, the Chesed and Gvura at that level, when it comes to the Hergish Alev, the Chesed is without limit, the Gvura is without limit. And it is the Seichel has to impose a Hagbola, a limit on the Chesed. The Chesed does not have an inherent limit. A person, even we are told, a person becomes generous and he splurges. You have to watch out. You have to put a limit on your splurging, even for tzedakah. Why do you need a limit? It should be inherent in the chesed itself. No, it's not. So on chesed, he doesn't know when to stop. He has to be told when to stop. Here we're saying that in the Koyach HaMaskil, there is Chesed and Gvura, but in the very same Koyach HaMaskil, and they're controlling each other. What is it in the Koyach HaMaskil that we say that Chesed and Gvura come together, and they're fully complementary? Whereas in the midas of Chesed and Gvura, it's not like that. And you have to really watch out where the Chesed goes and where the Gvura goes. A person can be extremely unjustifiably the Chesed and completely forget about limit. And a person can be, on the contrary, very, very stingy and very harsh and very demanding, also without the proper measure. That's how midas. Whereas in the Koyach HaMaskil we say it both comes together, the Chesed and the Gvura. Why is that? Because the Koyach HaMaskil is Seichel in essence. And what is the meaning of Seichel? Seichel is not how I feel about it. Seichel is how the truth is. This is the whole principle of seichel. What is the right thing? What is the correct thing? What makes sense? This is why in Koyach HaMaskil there is immediately both the chesed and the gvul. Because mitzat seichel, what is the focus of seichel is what is the correct thing. What is right and what is wrong. And in the right there is both. There is the chesed and the gvul. This is why a person who gives out the seichel in the proper limit, to say that he is giving a seichel in a seichelic way. If he does not have a limit, that means that he is under the control of his midas. He's so excited about the union that he lost limit. The midas became in control of his seichel. He doesn't know where to stop. But if he is coming from seichel, seichel to begin with has a definition of what is correct. And this is what it seeks, because this is what seichel, definition of seichel is. What is the truth? Not how I personally feel about it. What is the truth? And therefore, the truth encompasses both chesed and gvul. Because the truth of hashpah is that you must be in a way that a makabel can be makabel. Therefore, therefore the Hagbala is already inherent. If you must be in a way that a makabel cannot be makabel, that's not a true hashpah. Therefore, you did not take it episech. Okay. And this is the Koyach HaMaskil. This is what defines a human being. Everything that a human being does has an aspect of truth and correctness. Not just, this is the way I feel. That is uniquely reflective of what a human being is. Okay, ready? So all of this discussion is in order to understand the meaning that we want to explain Lamayl. The way only mar above, the Beis Shema is the Havaya ve'Elakim, the two names of Havaya and Elakim, because we asked earlier, how can the two Shemas Havaya ve'Elakim Kulach be one, since that Havaya, this is the Koyach HaBli Gvul, and Elakim is the Koyach HaGvul, and Gvul and Bli Gvul are opposites. So how can you say that they're Kulachad? Now we can understand the concept. Shehu, the Beis Shem is Havaya ve'Elakim, Shehu Koyach HaGilui, the Koyach HaGvul, which represent these two in Yonim. Koyach HaGilui, this is Havaya. The Koyach HaGvul, this is Elakim. But we have to understand that Shneihen Nimshochim Me'er Ein Soiv Atzmus Umahus. That both Havaya and the Elokim, they both are drawn from the Eir Ein Soiv, which is Atzmus Umahus. The whole inyan of Gilui Shem Havaya and the Hagbal of Shem Elokim is something that it comes from Eir Ein Soiv Atzmus Umahus. In terms of the moshel that we had, it means that the fact that there is Shem Havaya that's Mashpia and Shem Elokim that's Magbil is not just happening at the level of Shem Havaya and Shem Elokim, but it actually was decided above in the source of these names. In Eir Ein Soiv Atzmus Umahus. At much higher level, the Rebbe wanted to be Mashpia, wanted to create a world. And that's why there is a Shem Havaya and Shem Elokim. And both of them are representative of that original decision, want to be Mashpia. They both nimshach from Atzmus Umahus. The Kishay, when just as Shekoyach Hagilui, that this koyach of revelation, shehu b'china Shem Havaya, which is the aspect of Shem Havaya, nimshach mi'asmus Eir Ein Soiv. The gilui comes from Atzmus Eir Ein Soiv. So he says in parentheses, Shaharei ha'oir dovuk behamoir, u'me'ein hamoir. Since that the oir is connected to the source, u'me'ein hamoir, and it is actually reflective of the moir. Canal, as we said before, u'k'meshekosov b'mokimach, as is explained also elsewhere. What does this mean? The oil is dovek b'hamoyer, the oil is connected to the moyer means that the fact that there is oil is because there is also a moyer. What does the word moyer mean?
It's just to give a light.
Give off light. Give off light means that its inyan is to give off light. Not to have light, or to have the ability to give, not give light. Not mean moyer. The reason that there is oil is because there is a moyer. That wants to give off light. And it wants to give off light of its own light. Ma'ein hamoyer. It wants to make itself known. What's meant ma'ein hamoyer? Amen hamoyer.
This is the proof that Havaya is from Atzmus Umahus. It was like light from.
Oh, well, one second. Let's understand. So, the oir is reflective of Atzmus Eir Ein Soiv. Because oir is Ma'in HaMoyer. It's Dovek Ba'amoyer. And it comes from there and it is continually connected there. And it's reflective of that. All of these aspects, that it comes from there and it's connected there and it's reflective of that, are telling us that this is a moir. And we said the idea of moir is like koyach hamaskil. Koyach hamaskil means that which makes you smart, makes you understand. It wants you to understand. Not, okay, I know it all. That's not the point. Point is to know it and to translate and make and encourage the union of seichel. Moir, like the sun is called a moir in the Torah. Why is it called a moir? It's called a moir because it brings light to the world. Even though what comes to the world is light, not the sun. The sun is not part of it, does not come down to the earth. But the sun has a function to bring light to the earth. That's why it's called a moed. Otherwise, it would be two separate things. The sun is the sun, and somehow we take light from it and bring it to the earth. Unconnected. But the Rebbe created the sun to be a moed. It does not have an independent presence. Its whole function is to be a moed, to give light to the earth. So as great as the sun is, as infinite as the sun is, its inyan is to be moed. Not something independent to itself. This is the inyan that Shem Havaya comes from a moed. Shem Havaya is oyer. But this is an oyer that reflects the moed, reflects the source. And the source wants to be mashpi, wants to be nisgal, to give oyer. This is why it's Meir HaMoyer. Not like we may be thinking that, the sun is unto itself. And the earth comes in vision of the sun, in the light of the sun, so he gets light. But the sun is totally uninvolved and totally disinterested. The sun itself is like disinterested. But the Rebbe put it there to be a moed. And that is a whole function. So this is the pshat. The Shem Havai nimshach me'atzmos ein sof. Shem Havai comes from atzmos ein sof, because Shem Havai represents the mo'or, the etzem. K'moi kein, likewise, koyach ha'gvul ve'hatzimtzum. This gvul and tzimtzum that comes along with it, that is able to limit and direct this oir, shehu b'chin Hashem Elokim, nimshach gam tzei me'atzmos ein sof. That also comes from the Etzmos Ein Sof. V'hainu ma shekoyche b'gvul. This is the inyan that the Etzmos Ein Sof is koyche b'gvul. He has a koyach in gvul also. Because this inyan that Etzmos Ein Sof gives off oil is intended. From the kavanah. And therefore, in this kavanah is included both, and it should be oir, and it should be nigel. It's like a mo'er.
sun should not.
Hagbola and what?
You can say that oil. It's like Shema Havaya come from. Also the same the light coming from the sun. But about Hagbola we cannot bring the example from the sun.
Well, we do have Hagbola. What we do not have a motion is that this is done intentionally. Because the sun, this is how it's created, like a moir. Okay? And what we see in it that it's a moir, we see two things. We see that it gives off oil, but it gives off oil in a manner that the earth can receive. If the sun is 93 million miles away, if the sun were 50 million miles away, it would burn up.
So sun yes make Hagbola because I think the earth like center, so he's like sometimes he's closer, far away, but
It's closer, sometimes it comes in different angle. And the size of the sun itself is also measured exactly the way it should be. If the sun were larger, it would be intolerant. If it were smaller, it would not provide for the heat that we need. So the koyach hagvul is inherent in it being a mashpia, in being a moir. Okay, this will be it for today.